Resort, a single motorboat, and lives change in a small Caribbean town. Stay tuned for more on the Pomeroon Education Project in Guyana, up next on Carib Nation.
Support for Carib Nation Television is provided today by the law offices of Franklin N. Burke, a member of the District of Columbia and Maryland Bar practicing in the field of U.S. immigration and nationality law. Their telephone number is 202-463-8834.
When Fred and Zena Bone decided to open Adele's Rainforest Resort in their native Guyana, little did they know they would eventually contribute towards the fulfillment of at least one of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Hello, I'm Doris Dean. Welcome to Carib Nation. The first of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals is to achieve universal primary and secondary education, at least by 2005, and at all levels by 2015. My guests today are Fred and Zena Bone, Guyanese nationals, who launched the Pomeroon Education Project as they built an eco-resort near one of the unspoiled creeks in the interior of Guyana. Thank you so much for joining us, Fred and Zena. Zena, first, let's talk a little bit about how Adele's eco-resort did come about.
My grandmother inherited Adele's, and she died in 1982 at 103. So that tells you how long Adele's have been in. And it had been untouched for like 45 years. And I went, when I inherited the land, I went and I looked at it and I thought, oh God, I couldn't touch this. It's too huge. So I went to a meeting and sat next to Butch Churt, who owns Sandals and Jamaica Airlines. And I talked to Butch about it, and he says, you can't go wrong. Go for ecotourism. And I will say, Butch pushed me into it. I went in and I looked at it and I thought, that's a big job, but anyway, I'm going to try. So I sold my hotel in Barbados, and that's how Adele was born.
I see. Okay. Well, Fred, you're also from Guyana, but you're not from that area. You're from the Berbice area. Tell us a little bit about your introduction to the Pomeroon area and what it meant to you to be involved with this resort.
Well, I never knew, I'd never gone to the Pomeroon until I got married to Zena about 5 years ago. And she was always so enthusiastic of the place that first opportunity, we went back to Guyana, we went to Pomeroon, and it was such a serene, quiet, wonderful place to be. However, the people were not very well educated. They had very little job opportunities. And when we went to work on the resort, we met quite a few people, children, who should have really been in school. And we decided that we should do something about these children. It's quite a long story to explain all the factors that would go in to make the students not go to school. Mm-hmm. First, the place is rather agrarian in nature, mm-hmm. and the normal way of doing business is by bartering, so that money was not a main flow of things. But then as the place became more and more civilized, money became the normal way of doing business. However, the Amerindians still would bring down their cash rep and try to, if they did sell their cash rep for money, they would turn around and buy the food they needed to go back home with, so that they didn't have loads and loads of money to spend on other things. Also, there was this alcoholism that was rather prevalent, that caused the people not to be very productive even in their work. Mm-hmm. So there are all these factors that came into play that caused their kids not to go to school.
Mm-hmm. While building Adele's eco-resort on the edge of the Pomeroon River, the Bones made a discovery in the neighboring Amerindian village called, interestingly enough, Charity, home of the only high school in the lower reaches of the Pomeroon River, located about 22 miles from the mouth of the river. Once you discovered what the problems were, especially as far as the children were concerned, what was the first thing you decided you needed to do to change the situation for these kids in Charity?
Well, I just thought it was a hopeless situation and that it was beyond my capacity to do much. However, Zena, with her regularly enthusiastic self, along with her daughter Sasha, decided that something can be done and should be done. And so she came back here, talked to several of her friends, and decided that the best way we can start off is by hosting a brunch, and ask those who come to make a donation. Now, that occurred 3 years ago, and it was very, very successful. And the purpose of hosting the brunch was so that we could buy an engine. Her brother had promised us a boat and a driver, and even the gasoline, which I thought at the time was a rather magnanimous offer. And so all we had to do was buy an engine.
I see.
But that became having to pay for a driver, having to pay for gas, and it just mushroomed into what it is today.
And what kind of response did you receive from your friends and from people around who you told about this project?
I would say when I came back here and I talked to my friends, they were all receptive, all, 100%. I had really, really good friends. And I got in touch with Stanley Ming in Guyana, who is the sole agent for the Yamaha. And he was very, very good, and he gave us a good deal with the engine. I did not touch any Guyanese at the time for help, but we did not even get in touch with the headmaster until we knew we can get a boat and an engine. I did not want to sort of, boost their morale up that they'll have transportation for kids, and I wasn't successful. So some way the word got out, and the headmaster called me here one day, and he said, I heard you're going to have an engine. Can we get 20 children on that boat? And I said, well, we're hoping, call me after such and such a date. And we were successful. He called again, and indeed I said, yes, we're on our way to Guyana. You will have the boat and the engine. When we got there, there were 28 children, but the boat was for 20 children.
Oh, wow.
We managed to take 25. And today, we got a little bigger boat, which my brother took back the smaller and gave us a bigger boat.
Oh, I
and
see.
we are now taking 32 children. And I think when we were in Guyana, was it in May, it was very sad. As we got to Charity, we sat at this little coffee shop, Fred and I, and we had parents coming up to us, begging us to put their kids on the boat. We really have a list of 54 children now. So we went back to Stanley Ming, And we said, what can we do? And he had the suggestion of getting a fiberglass boat, which he makes. And the fiberglass boat is a lot lighter. So we are going to be doing 2 trips. And that is what we are hoping to be able to do now. We have not got all the money yet to get our new boat, but we're working very diligently in doing so.
So the that would be 2 trips each way, 2 trips in the morning to get them to school?
Absolutely.
Who are some of your key donors?
Well, I've had Osbert Applewaite. He really was the key donor, and he thought it was such a good gesture that he approached his company, Exxon, and asked them to help us with gas. They have been very good, and they gave us 3 months. He was here for this last brunch and spoke with me yesterday. He spoke with the president of Exxon, and we're hoping to get a year's supply. That would be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Fantastic.
Then there were others like you and many others who supported us, and the money just came in. You know, I'm just so grateful.
Yeah.
And I think what is so nice is when we get to charity, which is the village, and these children are traveling 22 miles each way, 44 miles a day. And you can see them running from school straight to the boat because they know they have transportation.
Yes, yes.
And
it makes a difference.
Yes. And you know, I saw 2 old ladies that sit there every afternoon just to see those children get in the boat. And I thought,
it must have been something, it must be gratifying for them to see the next generation get the opportunity that they didn't have.
That's right.
Can you tell me then how big that charity village is approximately?
Charity would probably have just over 1,000 people.
I see. Okay.
And they're, as you said, families. Yes, and just over 1,000, and that's including the kids.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Could you give us some idea, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with Guyana, of the geographical location of the Pomeroon? Where exactly in Guyana, north, south, east, or west?
It's in the Essequibo. And
That's
it's
north, south, east, west?
Yes, it's towards, I would say, the Venezuelan border, because those of us like me, born in the Pomeroon, Venezuela accept us as Venezuelans.
That's very interesting.
That's true.
Wow.
That's so true,
Oh,
yes. I had a call this morning from Venezuela, from the
Really?
family.
Oh,
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So actually, from my resort to Venezuela in an outboard engine, you can go and come back in a day. Yes.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Tell us a little bit about the people in charity, the community in charity. What is their life like, and what kind of people are they? What kind of impression do you get about them?
The people there are very ambitious. They want to get ahead, but there are certain old habits that die very hard. Alcoholism is very rampant. And of course, with this comes all of the other problems, including the most recent one being AIDS. Apart from that, just about 4 or 5 hours ride from Charity by boat, there's a gold mining town where there are a lot of young men going there to work, and associated with that, a lot of women going there for their night work. And so AIDS is rampant in that town, and it's coming back to Charity and to the Pomeroon River area. So AIDS is a growing concern, and I'm sure that with education, the younger people will learn some of the problems associated with promiscuous sex or just sex, unprotected sex. They will have a higher esteem for themselves. There'll be less free time to go cavorting around. And all of these things, I feel, come back to education.
Right.
That if we can get them an education, the younger people, the older ones, we don't want to write off, but we can't handle them now. I feel if we can do something for the young, and even the young may go back and help the older if we can educate them right where they live, they will be more prone to stay there and help
and spread
the knowledge.
Progress, yes, of the knowledge. What are some of the key changes you think you've made in the lives of these people as a result of this boat and education project for these children?
When we got there the last time, I said to Fred, I want to ride on the school boat and see the behavior of the children. And it gave me such joy when I saw the books passing from one to the other and said, how did you do with your French? I love that class today. And there was a joy in me just hearing them doing that. And I thought, I want to go on the morning with the first pickup. And pickup is 5:30 in the morning. Wow. So I asked the guy, come and pick me up first. So I go to the mouth of the river and actually see how the child gets on the boat. And they're mainly girls, as I said. We've just got a few boys. I sat with this little girl who came on. She was 12 years old and came in. And of course, they're very respectful. The morning Auntie Zena said, how are you, sweetheart? You look lovely for this time in the morning. And I asked little questions like, did you have to have your bath last night? There's no shower there, it's the bucket. And she said, no, Mommy wakes me up at 4 in the morning, and I have to cook my lunch. I said, really? What did you cook today? And she told me, I cooked chow mein. And this is a 12-year-old child I'm speaking to. And I said, very good. And she had to have her bath and do her hair and everything. And next child we picked up, same thing, these two little girls joined the boat, came on with their little bag and so on, said, what have you got in your bag? I've got my lunch, and they told you what they cook. And these children were all taking care of themselves. We asked about homework, and yes, we did the homework. And as we got to like the fourth stop, they all sat together, their little friends, and they were sharing. Let me see, I didn't understand that question. And so there was a sharing of even the work they did at home. And that was such joy.
I can imagine.
That was such joy. But you know, I think what makes me feel good too, we do have a meeting with the parents. Whenever we go, we ask the parents to come. And both Fred and I, we cannot be thanked more than these people have. Oh, they hug us and they thought that we are God's gift. But I said, no. Your parents and your foreparents were good to my parents.
Yes,
because
full circle. Yes,
it's just a circle. And somehow, when my daughter visited with me, I never saw it. She brought to light that these children are not doing anything when they should be. So when I see this boat can move every morning and take those kids to school, I'm just as happy as you are.
Yes, yes. I can imagine.
When we were there in May, we took ponchos for every child. That came out of the fun because we realized that the rain, they do get wet, the boat is open.
Of course.
So we've got ponchos because they can take their books under the poncho to go to school. So they're very well taken care of. And those who look like they can't afford a uniform, we do provide them with the uniform. So we try to make each child look good.
How well informed is the government about the project, and what is their reaction in terms of where they see their role?
I personally went to see the educational officer at the Essequibo course, and I had invited him to the opening. He did send a representative, and I have since been back to see him and asked him if he keeps in touch with the school just to see the attendance of these children is and what we are doing, is it a worthwhile cause? And he said, but of course it is. But you know that our hands are tied and we really don't have the funds to be able to help. I was trying to see if they will help us with the gas because the gas is very, very expensive to be able to do this. And so I said, even if you can help us with the removal of the taxes, it would make the gas a little bit better for us because we fund this from our monies we collect in the U.S. And of course, he did say to me that he would look into it, but I have then communicated with Mr. Bash, who is in charge at charity. And as he says, our hands are so tied, you know, we always need money and there's nothing they can do. So with Osbert Applewhite input, with the president of his organization, I'm just waiting and hoping that the word is yes. And that would be so great.
That would be a big help.
Now, I must say, one thing getting back to the boat is that I did have Mr. Bash, who has asked me if I could assist the Upper River in also getting transportation to charity. And I thought, I've got my hands full with 22 miles. So somebody else should be able, a businessman, I suppose, in the area can take the Upper River. So the Upper Pomeroon, they are still suffering. But the majority, the Lower Pomeroon, that is the most populated area. And that's where my strength is.
Right.
And I mean that I will see. I can see so many things happening from this, that the young people would not have to go into the interior to do what they are doing now. They can then go back to the farm. There's a lot of export going on now for Guyana, exporting tomatoes, exporting. Perhaps, I mean, there might be some way that where they can come together, have one machine that you can rotate it, lend each other to till the soil, and they can continue to do something there, you see. So that's what I'm looking at, because there's one person right now in the Pomeroon that's doing quite a lot of business with exporting, and when I go back now, I am trying to see if I can get her to organize some kind of an agriculture training.
Yes. What do you still need to sustain the project, and how can people contact you if they want to help?
Money.
More money.
The thing about it is we need things like gasoline, which is more than money, because to get it, to have the money down there and to buy it, that will go in no time. But the fact is, our shipping costs are very high when we're selling things. Thanks to a very, very good friend, we should mention him, Mr. Neblet. He has been transporting all our boxes at a very, very nominal fee, and we thank him. But then again, at this point, it's not worth the while buying things from here, shipping it. It's better if we buy certain things there. Okay? There are certain things we cannot get there, like the computers and such. So those things, we appreciate the donations. But a lot of what Guyana needs, and much of what we need right now in the charity area, the Pomeroon area, is money, so that we can do so many things.
Right. Dr. Agustine, you have lived in the Pomeroon region of Guyana. Tell us a little bit about life in that part of Guyana and why it was important to you to support this education project.
Yes, I did live there. I was headmaster of the government school, which was managed by the Methodist body, and I lived there for 3 years. I taught school there and even housed kids who wanted to go on further in their education. That was necessary because of the dangers in traveling on the river.
Right. Now, education was limited for secondary school.
Yes, the government provided 8 years of education, and it was up to the headmaster to determine if there were any kids who were able to proceed further. And if that was the case, you could provide them with an agreement with the parents with an additional 2 years, which was equivalent like the two first years of high school education.
I see.
That are equivalent high school education.
As an educator, obviously, you understand the importance of a project like this.
Oh, yes, I do.
Give us some idea of what it is that you hope to see as a result of this, and why is it important for you to support it?
Well, for one thing, I know how difficult it is for the children to receive even elementary education. The dangers on the river, for one thing. The families are all farmers, and children will travel for miles on the river to get to school. And depending on the tide on the river, they will have to wait sometimes for the tide to turn in their favor for hours before they can get back home. Without assistance, it is very difficult for the children to proceed beyond 6 years of education. Mm-hmm. And this project helps them to do just that.
Work in the region, and I understand the problems that the region is faced with. So that is my motivation for joining them in contributing to their efforts.
It is clear that the United Nations Millennium Development Goals can be achieved if we each take on one project at a time. Just to have an education can improve lives in one village at a time. Self-esteem, especially of young girls, leads to accountability, financial responsibility, and good citizenship, all on the road to poverty alleviation, AIDS prevention, and sustainable development. We can all do this together. What is your contribution? Thanks for watching us on Carib Nation. I'm Deris Dean. Until next time.